Hello, and Merry Christmas everyone. Now, I know it is the season to be jolly, but not if you're me. You see, I'm usually extremely positive on this channel, highlighting, the greatest bands of all time and all that, but I'm going to take a break from that for just 1 week, so I can tell you about the 10 worst rock bands of all time.
The Crash Test Dummies prove that you don't need to be good at singing or even capable of writing a chorus composed of actual lyrics in order to be successful.
There seems to be this unwritten rule stating that all Canadian bands must suck, and these hacks are no exception. The Crash Test Dummies lead singer has one of the ugliest voices I have ever heard.
And don't think that the rest of the band are any better. Now, their album, God Shuffled His Feet, found success 21 years ago, but nowadays it's just one of those CDs that gathers dust in the deepest recesses of everyone's music collection.
Yeah, I don't really like those guys.
Once upon a time in the late 90s, Oasis boasted about how they had surpassed the Beatles, and yeah, that never happened.
That's because the Beatles were original, whereas Oasis have the authenticity of a tin of Spam.
Being unoriginal by itself isn't bad per se, but Oasis don't just steal things from other artists. They steal things from other artists and rub shit on them. Noel's John Squire influenced guitar work is boring and predictable, lacking any of John Squire's flair. And Liam Gallagher? Don't even get me started on his singing. Not only did he rip off the Charlatans' Tim Burgess with his vocal style, but unlike Burgess, Liam has no range. He sounds so flat that you can almost see the notes he's shattering.
A lot of hair metal bands like to blame their demise on Kurt Cobain's rising popularity because it's a lot easier to blame grunge than it is to admit that you suck.
With perhaps one of the most fitting names for a band ever, Poison took a dark, complex genre called heavy metal and dumbed it down into horrible, radio-friendly vomit. Instead of singing about chemical warfare and death, they were instead singing about picking up girls and, actually I think that's about it.
Green Day, stick to what you're good at, which is singing about masturbation and drug abuse. No one cares about your political point of view.
I could forgive Green Day for their aggressively average musicianship, overblown compositions, and lack of punk flavour if they weren't so bloody pretentious.
In 2002, bassist Mike Dirnt complained to his bandmates that Green Day were losing their punk identity. What fucking punk identity? They're about as punk as Enya.
How is it that people complain about Bob Dylan's vocals and yet they listen to AC/DC? What's the disconnect?
AC/DC songs are so samey and repetitive that I'm convinced they make music for people with short-term memory loss. AC/DC songs are so samey and repetitive that I'm convinced they make music for people with short-term memory loss. AC/DC songs are so samey and repetitive that I'm convinced they make music for people with short-term memory loss. You can pretty much take what we said about Poison and apply it to Motley Crue too.
Remember how much I said I hated AC/DC's shrill vocalist in a previous video? Well, the guy from this band makes him sound like Ian Curtis. I have never been more annoyed by a hair metal singer than by the one from Motley Crue. Ever.
Also, let's not forget that this band's most famous song is about going to a strip club. Come on, if you have to brag about going to a strip club, you're a sad fuck.
I've never actually met a living human being who enjoys Nickelback, but then again, I've never been to Canada.
Let's see. Formulaic songs, sexist lyrics, constipated vocals. Can this band do anything right?
While not the first to ruin the genre, Nickelback's music still sounds like grunge without any creativity or grit to it. And another thing, bizarrely, 50,000 people went to see them in Manchester 2 years ago. The only explanation I can think of is that they must have a lot of relatives there.
I vaguely recall a story in which the lead singer of Creed recounts a time in which his Jaeger consumption caused his life to spin out of control, which makes him sound like any college student living in America. You're a rock star. You should be complaining about hard drugs.
Like Nickelback, Creed are yet another band that emerged after grunge collapsed, but after listening to Creed, you'll swear that music collapsed in 2000.
Creed have, hands down, the most constipated sounding vocalist I've ever heard. As if his voice wasn't aggravating enough to listen to, try reading his lyrics. They're flecked with references to Christianity. How dare he take rock, the coolest genre in music, and add references to Christianity, the uncoolest thing ever.
Admitting that you like Limp Bizkit is like telling someone that you have herpes. It's best that you keep that information to yourself.
Do you want to know the template for every Limp Bizkit song ever? Well, here it is. Play 3 distorted power chords and call it a riff. Then add in some drumming that sounds like a chimp beating a coffee can. Oh, but most importantly, add in some rapping from a grown white man about how he was picked on at school, ensuring that every second word is fuck.
One time when I was 4, I went shopping at Asda with my then 11-year-old brother, who was really into nu metal back then. He wanted a copy of Chocolate Starfish, but the lady at the till literally refused to sell it to him. That's how bad Limp Bizkit are. Asda wouldn't sell their album. Keep in mind though that this is the same company that has no issue selling this. Finally, Fred Durst is the most obnoxious, immature and vile frontman in rock. Sure, his lyrics are dumb and his singing ability is almost non-existent, but let's not forget about how he ruined Woodstock in '99 by telling the crowd to release their negative energy, resulting in several instances of violence and sexual assault. Fuck you, you backward baseball cap wearing wanker.